Okay, guys, I was going to record this later, but this situation is too weird and super strange for me not to. It hooked my interest. So, for those of you who don't know, two of the worst people on YouTube are having a falling out. The degenerate Ethan Decline and the degenerate Hasan Piker. And I just recorded a video where this black guy completely decimated Hassan Piker, and it was incredible. But so the falling out is allegedly over communism. It's so weird. It's so weird, but I'm gonna show it. So, for those of you who don't know, they're completely degenerate. They revel in spreading misinformation. They gleefully celebrate stating the opposite of the truth, not just lies, but the opposite of the truth. They slander anyone who embodies their failure. And they're obviously far left. That shouldn't be surprised considering that they're mentally broken. But they're falling out because apparently Hassan Piker is way more of a communist than Ethan Decline. So I think that I should analyze parts of this because this degeneracy was inevitable. In the sense that because the left is incoherent and only relies on group identity and defines the merit of an idea based on your identity group rather than the intrinsic merit of the idea, they're destined to eat themselves. They're destined to live in conflict and in chaos forever because there's no technical way of ever resolving the chaos. The way chaos is resolved, the way interpersonal problems are resolved, is through logic and reason and rationality. But radical leftists and obviously communists can't contend with that sort of environment. So I'm really curious what this is, what the details of this are, because I want to see, I want to sort of marvel at the brokenness of these people in the same way that I would watch a serial killer documentary. I haven't seen this video. I've just seen Ethan tweeting about this on Twitter, basically saying this is the last. They had a extreme leftist show. I never watched a single episode because that would just be severe. That would just be like downloading AIDS into your body, right? But they had this podcast where Hassan and Ethan lied about things. I saw clips of them lying about Andrew Tate. They're just complete losers, obviously. But I want to see what is causing them to fall apart. My understanding from Twitter is that Ethan isn't as much of a communist as Hassan, and because these leftists can't vet ideas, that makes him a bad person. That makes Ethan a bad person. Ethan is a bad person for a bunch of other reasons. Hassan's probably a worse person just because he's a psychopath and sociopath. Although, given what I've seen, given the behavior that I've seen from Ethan when it comes to lying and slandering Andrew Tate and gleefully celebrating him being imprisoned falsely, I would say that he's probably a psychopath too. So this is kind of from the perspective of analyzing two very low IQ serial killers, and is the way I'm approaching this.
So I do think this conversation of, I'm not even going to say capitalism because that seems to trigger people. I'm just going to say social democracy.
That's funny. That's a really interesting way to begin things, because capitalism isn't an economic theory. It's just it is the way value is produced, and the fact that it would trigger people is a testament to the brain rot of this person's audience. The people that watch the show are immensely hateful people that despise reality. They live in resentment for objective frameworks, and the fact that he would say that his audience would be triggered by the word capitalism should tell you a tremendous amount about how broken they are. To imagine having your life made possible via capitalism. Your life literally made possible by billionaires who create things in the richest society that the world has ever seen, with the most amount of technology the world has ever seen, all produced by capitalism. And then being afraid to use that word, it is a admission. It is a testament to the degeneracy that grips these people. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. I want to just find the best parts of this.
One of the things that I do quite frequently is yell at people to be normal, because people just have no fucking...
That's funny coming from this guy who's literally a alt leftist communist who says he's telling people to be normal. That's insane. Yeah, these people, it's really interesting. It's sort of like looking at zoo animals. They're completely mentally destroyed. They're living in a parallel reality of their own delusion, constantly furious at reality for proving them wrong. And so this is very fascinating.
And then the other side of it is, like, there's a lot of baby socialists out there who are like on their own journey, okay? And they get like really passionate.
There are losers who've never created anything and resent the fact that Elon Musk is a winner. By the way, this guy made a video one time, I saw the title of it, called Elon Musk. I think it was Elon Musk is a loser. And it was at this point that Elon Musk had become the richest person in the world. So this person, yeah, he's completely incoherent and incogent when it comes to interfacing with reality. That's what I mean when I say these people are mentally damaged.
And the goal always is like, oh my God, we have to convert every single person to socialism immediately.
Or anyone to the right of me is part of the problem.
There's that too, but
and then he pretended as though the radical left is the default meritorious position when there's no evidence for that. But that is a Marxist presupposition of virtue that is completely unfounded and based in identity politics that killed 30 million people, north of 30 million people by a lot, actually.
I don't know what I'm talking about, and so I've been thinking about our conversation a lot, and I've been educating myself a lot. And I want to continue the conversation today, but I don't want to have a debate. I want to have I want to go on a fact-finding journey for myself about how socialism is addressing certain issues.
It's so pathetic that people are openly entertaining socialism. It's absolute madness, completely insane. This is Twilight Zone stuff.
Versus
there are every single fact pattern of any type of investigative field that is objective, whether that be psychology, anthropology, history, biology, demonstrates that capitalism is not an economic theory. It is a law of nature called the Pareto distribution. It's how you create value. And socialism isn't just wrong because it kills tens of millions of people, which is a really good reason to be wrong. Actually, that's an amazing reason to be wrong. But it's not just wrong because of that. It's wrong because it's actually wrong because its statements about nature are incorrect. They are completely wrong. You cannot have equality of outcome because people are not equally equipped. Therefore, the rewards that go to people will not be equal. And if you say that the rewards go to everyone equally, then all you're doing is promising to instantiate a tyranny in order to reach that. And what ends up happening when you instantiate that tyranny is everyone starves to death because nothing gets produced.
Social democracy.
okay.
And to understand from you, a socialist, what really that is and how would it be, enacted. Dan, are you
we don't want to get too much into the weeds of bullying them for being stupid. What I want to do primarily, and because I think to most thinking people they can track the ideas clearly, what I want to really analyze here is the psychological problems that they're dealing with. These guys teamed up because they had a hatred for reality. That's what happened. That's the reason why they attacked Andrew Tate together. What really happened was, and you guys may ask, how do you know this? And later it's going to be proven to be true in so many different ways, and you'll be able to look back on this video and think, did he have inside information? No, I'm just able to analyze things in a way most people are incapable of getting to. Hasan approached Ethan, and Hasan is a psychopath, narcissist, and so he thinks, what can I get out of this? How can I further my message? His message is degenerate, but he thinks, how can I further it? And he thought, okay, I need to identify people with a big audience that I can, who are vulnerable as a result of hating reality, being nihilistic, being cynical, being an outcast in a variety of different ways. Ethan is an outcast in a variety of different ways, and you started to see this when he deleted the Jordan Peterson episode, which was a signifying moment of rejecting mental coherence and open investigation. It was at that point where he went off the deep end. Hasan noticed that, and it was at that time that Hasan Piker approached Ethan Decline and said, essentially, we should team up. And they had this relationship where they started to team up in their hatred for reality, and they started to create these machinations of complete degenerate evil. And when that happened, that's how we got this, enormous amount of damage caused to their followers. This immense amount of hatred for any person that disagrees with the radical left got furthered. The hatred for Andrew Tate was heavily pushed by these people because Andrew Tate embodies every single way that they fail, whether that be because they're fat, incoherent, hate capitalism, embody unapologetic masculinity when these guys are both betas. And I highly encourage you guys to watch this, the video I made of that black guy decimating Hasan, basically exposing him as honestly, beta male would be a bit too masculine. He kind of exposed him as a woman, if I'm being honest. So I want to find parts of this video and show them to you. So I'm going to find parts of this video and show them to you where I can see their relationship being that relationship predicated on degeneracy and collective hatred for reality coming to an end. That's interesting to me.
Socialist, would you say?
This guy, I only know this because of Twitter, is a radical communist and is also going to be leaving the show as a result of being a radical communist. And I know that that's the case because they say that on Twitter, but I also know that this is because of Hasan. I know that this is because of Hasan's influence. They have it's like a hate party. It's a pity party, but for hate. Let's hate reality together. Let's be victims, and this cultivates resentment. They direct this resentment at Andrew Tate, at masculinity, at capitalism, at reason, at logic, at any type of objective field that proves them wrong, and they slander people. That's where they reject. That's where they siphon this resentment. But this guy's also possessed by resentment, and he's also leaving the show. So there is being an upheaval in the radical leftist space because they eat their own. They have no way of resolving conflict. And for those of you who think, oh, how do you resolve conflict? It's every man for himself. Your brain's not sophisticated enough. Look, Ben Shapiro and I would disagree on things, but do you think we couldn't be friends, like, while disagreeing on things? The answer is, of course we could, because we possess something that the radical leftists don't. We can engage in the mechanism of discourse, vet ideas, share ideas, bounce ideas off each other without calling each other bad people for disagreeing with each other. We can, and the reason for that is because we are primarily identifying with an individual identity, and we have faith in the mechanism of free speech and dialogue to produce something that is better than what we started with. Radical leftists don't believe in any of that. They don't believe in individual identity. They only believe in group identity. They reject the notion of free speech. That's the reason why free speech has become a right-wing issue rather than, a liberal issue. It used to be a liberal. And they don't believe that truth itself can be revealed because they don't believe truth exists. Everything is socially constructed, and there is no such thing as objective truth. There is moral relativism. There is no up from down. And this is how you get them saying things like, yeah, we should be able to castrate teenagers if they say they want to be castrated, but they can't have a library card until they're 16. That's how they get to mental places like that, and that's how they're different. So they don't possess what thinking people possess. So it's very, very interesting. It's sort of like watching a serial killer documentary on low IQ psychopaths.
I'd broadly I'd say so, sure.
Dude, we're about to get executed after this. Ethan's called.
Dude, everybody was riding for you guys.
This is Ethan's McCarthy trials. It's like, would you say you're a card-carrying communist? Okay, very good.
No, being a socialist is cool, apparently, online.
No, dude. It's like sick. There are...
Absolutely is now the mainstream, not the mainstream, but in many ways it's the mainstream position because the radical left is now the establishment. And so to be the counterculture, you have to believe in logic, reason, rationality, morality. Men cannot become women. It's better to be unapologetically masculine, go to the gym. Basically, everything that makes you a winner in the eyes of objective reality is now the counterculture.
Of course, there's a lot of people here.
Bro.
There's a lot of people here that
would really pathetic too that this psychopathic narcissist lives. I know where he lives, by the way. I won't say his address, but I know where he lives. He lives in a very, very wealthy neighborhood. He's benefited tremendously from capitalism, and so he's talking to very poor people that live in their mother's basements. And just hate Elon Musk because he almost started a war with Ukraine. Meanwhile, he prevented nuclear war and is revolutionizing the space industry and Tesla. I'm not going to go into it. If you need an explanation for why Elon Musk is impressive, you likely already have a lobotomy.
Would be there are very few places online where you can just be like out and about and openly defend any kind of economic organization, society beyond capitalism. Without a tremendous amount of scrutiny.
It's very funny that he's essentially admitting that this is the way a psychopath looks at the world. He's admitting that he looks at the world in terms of this psychopathic predation. it's very difficult to authentically be my psychopathic self and advocate an ideology worse than Nazism in terms of the death count, because people tend to challenge me. And so this is a slow climb, is the way he's phrasing it. It's very, very interesting and reprehensible. So I want to hear the way Ethan replies.
Well, I
Because
got
we do
roasted
exist under
in
a
our
capitalist
community.
dogma. Well, of course, the other side was defending you. That's why you didn't notice it. You know
See,
what I
that's
mean?
not good though. I don't want Tim Pool defending me or whatever, whoever.
Identity
I didn't.
politics. That's interesting and expected. So identity politics. Oh, the people defending me are people who disagree with us, and so therefore they're bad people. Because again, they're rejecting individual identity. There's only group identity, and your membership in the group defines your virtue and merit. As opposed to on the other side that embraces reason, logic, rationality, what determines your merit is the merit of your ideas. But to the left, they don't have that. It's only that your merit is defined by the club that you're a part of.
I didn't watch all the.
No, I don't.
Essentially, by the way, I want to be clear. This is not like a mainstream show. We are watching. I'm showing you right now the deepest cesspool on YouTube that is possible to find. This this is not mainstream.
I had a very in-depth conversation with ChatGPT.
Respect. Okay. That's good.
I asked it really kind of.
Well, Ben Shapiro thinks it's socialist, like ChatGPT socialist. So
Right.
like ChatGPT probably
ChatGPT
Lenin.
is
Right,
so
yeah.
real.
Yeah.
ChatGPT keeps it so real. You don't even know.
ChatGPT Lenin pilled you.
It's horrific to see people say Lenin pilled when Lenin was like a terrible dictator. That's so surreal. Imagine people openly praising Hitler. That's why I said this is kind of crazy that I can find this and we can watch this together. You're watching people praise Lenin. Do you realize what that means? Do you realize how many people Lenin killed? He was a brutal, horrible dictator. And they're referencing like, oh, haha, you're Lenin pilled. Like, what?
So,
No,
is Lenin a socialist or a social democrat?
no, that's Lenin is the
Let's see how the psychopathic narcissist describes Lenin.
the revolutionary figure that is probably more important than Marx even.
What's
In-
his deal? He's just a he's
That's
just a
crazy. That's crazy. What a crazy thing to say. It's like praising Hitler.
socialist.
Yes, he's
All right.
the first.
Okay, so moving on, they're essentially praising Hitler here. So I'm gonna find.
Like, I mean, we're the father of the USSR.
That was a nice legacy to have.
Could have been.
I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Could have
I
been.
shouldn't.
No,
I'm not
no,
gonna
no,
start
no, no, no.
already.
You-
Wow,
you're-
these people are actually horrific. Are we living in parallel reality? Did you hear what they just said? I want to skip forward, but it's very difficult. Like what? Could have been the USSR. People were fleeing the USSR because they were eating the leather off of their shoes. The USSR starved 30 million people between the years 1917 and 1957. Communism was an abject failure. It's so surreal to see this. You might ask how people are like this, and it's because they hate reality. I gotta keep reminding people of that.
First, I want to say that I promote my shit all the time on the show, so now I want to give Hasan a shout
We
out.
can't. There's no reason to promote it. It's already all sold out.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Good for you.
New ideology drop, immediately sold out. Kind of annoying that it sold out so quick, but I'm sorry, except for the hoodie that I'm wearing currently. That's it.
Wait, what? Did they have like demons sitting at a table? Wait. Dude, this is surreal. Inverted American flag demons. Is this some sort of like merchandise? Dude, see what I mean? These people are mentally damaged. What we're witnessing is like a zoo of mentally damaged people. Look at this. What have I found here, bro? What? How do their followers look at this and think this is normal? What am I seeing? These are the people that demonize Andrew Tate, and they have websites where people are sitting around a table dressed as demons. What enters their mind to do that? You have to ask yourself, if you're a thinking person, why are they dressed as demons and they're demonizing Andrew Tate when he goes to the gym and embodies competence to young men? Like, they hate humanity. They hate reality. They're immensely furious at reality. It's crazy. Talking about how they're pro-drugs.
One thing I want to make clear before we engulf on this conversation is that me and you pretty much have like 95% crossover.
There it is. That's the admission that they hate reality to a very, very similar extent. That's the reason they said, "Wait, we should team up. We hate reality. We're losers. We should be on the same team."
terms of like
We should wear the same jersey. We both hate masculinity. We both hate, truth.
our goal for the welfare of the people of our utopian society.
Yeah.
I mean, my guiding hope.
These people are damaged, mentally damaged, without reading history. This is, dude. This is the equivalent of like a Nazi podcast saying we should have a utopian society and talking about Mein Kampf. That's what this is. They were praising Marx. They were praising Lenin. That the Marxist ideology killed 50 plus million people. 50 plus million people. But to the left, those corpses don't matter because they're tolerant and empathetic.
Completely abolishing the profit motive in certain commodities like housing, for example, will address that problem because then you're making housing specifically for need.
These people are so damaged, bro. This is really hard to watch because it's very difficult for a moral person to watch like a serial killer. At least a serial killer only kills maybe a dozen people. They're advocating for an ideology that killed tens of millions. So this is tough.
Rather than so you can make money in places.
What?
Yeah, it exists everywhere.
But I do think that in a socialist country, like I said, there's going to be a sizable amount of people moving towards capitalism. So what's the difference?
I don't know if it'll be as sizable. And there also always has to be a state mechanism of control, which exists in neoliberal capitalism as well.
Talking about, wow, he just said tyranny. So he just said state control, enforcement of communism and socialism. So yeah, he's praising tyranny right now. What we're seeing is really, really interesting, like a zoo animal.
And this is actually...
Observe the degenerate zoo animal hating reality, advocating for the most murderous ideology ever, as we all can just laugh and, mock this.
An area where
but also refute it, because dangerous ideas have to be, confronted and beaten with better ideas, or they proliferate.
From other socialists, I would say, or even more orthodox Marxists, that I believe the neoliberal mechanisms of control, specifically...
Any educated person, or any person that is interested in objective truth, will realize that being a Marxist is just intellectually embarrassing. That's all that it is. It means you don't understand reality. It means you don't understand the claims made by Marxism, and you don't understand what objective reality is in any field like psychology, biology, neuroscience, anthropology. Claims made in Marxism are not wrong because of opinion. They are objectively, measurably incorrect from top to bottom. The assertions made in Marxism about how the only force that mediates interpersonal relationships is power is completely wrong. That is objectively completely incorrect. They try to suggest that every hierarchy is predicated on power, when that's verifiably wrong. It is not just predicated on power, it's also predicated on competence and authority, but especially competence. And they just completely throw out competence. And the reason they do that is because that requires the meritocracy. Competence is the meritocracy. Again, you see how the equality of outcome is impossible because not everyone is equally gifted at the same things. Not everyone has the same IQ. Not everyone is equally gifted at the violin or the piano or doing math or, whatever the example may be. So they reject the idea of competence hierarchies and only say there is power hierarchies. And once they say there's only power hierarchies, then they can say there's only tyranny, and these power hierarchies are predicated on, this is the other error that they make. It's very easy to run into these errors, that people's identity are defined by intersectionalism, which is essentially saying every person's identity can be reduced down to an infinite number of measurements. And based on this identity, we can erect a victimhood hierarchy in the power hierarchy, because there's no other hierarchy, that defines your virtue and status. It's totally incoherent. These people's brains are broken. If you're a Marxist, you are admitting that you don't care about truth and you don't understand truth at all. So yeah, it's completely incoherent. The claim that you are a victim as a result of your intersectionalist result is utterly false. It's completely wrong, because there is not only power hierarchies, there's also competence hierarchies. And in America, that's why there's a such thing called as the American dream and not the Indian dream or the Pakistani dream or the whatever dream. It's the American dream, because people have an opportunity under a system that says you're an individual first, you can exercise freedom and liberty to produce things in competition with others, and we will call this the meritocracy. We will call this, well, it is capitalism, because capitalism is the only way you produce anything. That's another error that communism and Marx makes when he suggests that capitalism is an economic theory or some sort of competing model to Marxism. No, Marxism is the created, pathetic, low-resolution, broken set of ideas made by humans, and capitalism is set forth in biology via the Pareto distribution. The Pareto distribution governs all competence hierarchies. And just the fact that we're talking about competence hierarchies invalidates the entire Marxist theory. It's so blatantly obvious. Their ideology is totally broken, because once you talk about the competence hierarchy, you're saying there's not just a power hierarchy, and all they pretend that exists is a power hierarchy. So they're utterly broken. They cannot admit that competence hierarchies exist, because then you don't get equality of outcome without tyranny. That's the reason they can't admit that it exists. So it's completely broken and defunct. Their ideology is broken, and it's driven by resentment, not compassion. That's what you have to understand, is their ideology is fundamentally driven by the resentment of reality, of objective parameters, of the, well, originally in Marxism, it was the bourgeoisie versus proletariat. So it was fundamentally only about, at least it was allegedly only about economic disparities. But now it's about all the disparities, so to speak, disparities between intersectionalism. Every single way you can divide people: race, gender, sexual identity, sexual attraction, every single way you can define someone, height, anything. Obviously, the popular ones today are race and gender identity, but there's an infinite number of intersectionalist identities. And the notion that you're not an individual and you derive your virtue and your status as a result of being oppressed is the worst ideology ever produced by humanity. It has killed tens of millions of people. So these people are worse than Nazis. You see those people with tiki torches, or those tattoos in Florida and that go viral. This should go viral for being worse than that, because it literally is, and it's provable. All you have to do is study any field objectively, not the modern fields created to hate reality and hate men and hate the patriarchy and hate capitalism. I'm talking about neuroscience. I'm talking about psychology. I'm talking about science. I'm talking about biology. I'm talking about neurochemistry. Pick any one and study it, and you'll realize that the claims Marxism makes about reality are objectively wrong. They're just wrong.
There's this idea that there are, this endless, boundless amount of choices that you can choose from. On the other side, the more authoritarian mechanisms of control, which have existed
What's your opinion?
I like the neoliberal one. I think that even in a socialist state, you should still very much give the people the false notion of choice and make it feel like they have a say in the process while doing the bidding of... I mean, it's a pretty cynical worldview, but I think that, that's what states are supposed to do.
Let me ask you this.
So he's admitting to be openly totalitarian. This is blatantly evil stuff here. So really crazy to see a leftist being so willing to admit that they're evil, and the only and that the reason they're willing to do that is because they're not expecting to be scrutinized on anything that they say. They're only expecting to be followed and for people to clap and say, yes, I need to get my fourth booster, and we should have totalitarian control over markets and what people can sell goods at. They're not expecting for any of their ideas to be challenged, because they say that if you challenge their ideas, then you're a bad person. That's how they don't contend with anyone, rising up. But that's also why they're constantly eating each other, like what we're seeing right now. So, yeah, crazy to see genuine evil just stated as an open goal. They want totalitarian control over markets. That's nuts. It's really crazy to hear them admit that. But then again, this essentially is a zoo for social outcasts with IQs below 100. So we can't be that surprised. This is complete. These people are rejects. That's why they dislike Andrew Tate and lied about him.
Let me be, I guess, more specific. If you're in a socialist country, is there one party or multiple parties?
It depends. I mean,
Because one party's scary, right? Can we agree on that? A one-party system is not a good system.
I think you and I would agree that we.
No. I'm just asking you. I don't care about the United States. I'm asking you about socialism.
I think that there are different forms of governance, and the United States is not that different.
I don't care about the United States. I want to know. I just want to talk about a socialist.
I think
country.
that no matter what happens, the state does what the state is supposed to do. You can either do it at the behest of your citizens because you genuinely, earnestly believe that like that is the best possible way of developing a society, or you do it at the behest of capital owners and capitalism.
So you're saying you don't think it matters if there's one party or...
I don't think it matters as far as I care about direct democratic participation in local local
one
positions.
party systems with socialism or communism has pretty much always been a catastrophe.
Yeah.
A humanitarian disaster.
No, I agree with that.
There's just so much risk in having one party.
I agree with that. I think that a multi-party system is obviously going to be better. My point is that it doesn't even matter if you have...
People are evil. I want you to understand this is evil. What you're looking at is demonic. This is evil.
Of a parliament, it doesn't even matter if you have a multi-party system. The changes that are being made in one direction or the other are oftentimes incredibly marginal.
What you're watching is someone being an apologist, not just an apologist, but let's call it an apologist. What you're watching is someone being an apologist for something worse than Nazism. Think about that. That's crazy.
The differences
this
are
is
not
crazy. Twitch allows this, but they deplatform Aiden Ross and they allow this. The left is insane. The left is evil. They're evil.
things
So
like
what I want to say was this then.
But-
If you're in a socialist country with multiple parties, and one of the parties is a capitalist party, which would surely exist.
Yeah.
What would you do if that party started gaining momentum?
They are totalitarian. They are against freedom. They're against people disagreeing. That's what the leftist position already is today. Can you imagine in a communist, zone? I mean, we already know what it's like because we saw it in history. It's totalitarian fascism. It's a disaster.
Clearly, like, people wanted that route. They wanted that route.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
I think I would do what America has done, not to the same
Which is
degree,
what?
not to the same degree as like McCarthyist trials or anything like that. But I would offer additional amenities to ensure that people are comfortable and happy, because I feel like
But what do you do if they're like, nah, fuck that, we're doing capitalism? But they're saying, no, we want to do, because they're like, yo, this is a free country, right? Well, we want to do capitalism.
Say it's not a free country. Say you want to round them up and put them in camps. Say it.
The market should regulate the prices and shit. Like,
It will
we don't
always-
think the workplace should be socialized.
Okay, that's a great question.
And what if
you have
because-
to ask why though at that point, because
people never can be explained by why anyway. You know what I mean?
some people are gonna be dumb. You're right.
It's like you don't. It's just gonna exist. You know it is.
Yeah.
And so if the will of the people is to go back to do more of a social democracy, is that something that a socialist country should move towards, or should there be resistance in the government to keep socialism?
I think the resistance should be akin to how capitalist governments have resisted historically any kind of socialist movement, not to that same degree of violence, but I think that yes, the solution to that would always be education and offering more
Re-education camps.
Re-education?
Re-education, certainly, yeah. I know that that's like a
Let's
trigger
put them in
word.
camps.
No, not like that. I know there's
You're seeing evil, guys. This is crazy. This is madness.
a trigger word because everyone goes, "Oh, re-education." What do you mean? Like immediately people think like,
What you're seeing is evil. I don't know how Twitch allows this. This guy is advocating for an ideology worse than Nazism. It killed more people than Nazism, and he's openly advocating for fascism, openly advocating for tyranny. This is not a good person. I mean, it goes beyond just him not being a good person. This is dangerous. This is crazy. This is lunacy. This is antithetical to the human spirit. This is complete and utter madness. Madness. What you're seeing is madness. This person's mentally damaged. Everyone needs to see this person as mentally damaged so that people don't live ruined lives. Obviously, this will never be allowed to happen because there will always be good, strong men to stand up against evil. But this is evil, and people have to admit that this is evil because, there's a lot of confusion in America. There's a lot of people that can't tell up from down. This is the darkest thing that has ever existed on the face of the planet. in terms of anything that humans have ever produced. Communism killed more people than any other ideology in the history of the world. And he's advocating for re-education camps for capitalists. Think about that. That's how dark this guy's heart is. That's how like ruined he is. That's how evil this person is. We all need to like look at this like he's, you know, a deformed creature. And Twitch, any platform, if there should be, you know, deplatforming for any person, it should be somebody advocating for you know, tyranny, for re-education, for.
They do it. They did it in Xinjiang, which I think
good,
was,
right?
No, I don't agree with that. Yeah, I don't think it was good. This is something I have openly criticized as well. Like that's not good. The massive surveillance apparatus that they built in Xinjiang is not good.
So what would be good about a socialist re-education camp for capitalists?
It wouldn't necessarily.
Did you guys hear that statement?
I don't think it'd be camps. I mean, it depends on.
Dude, this is what Nazis did, bro. This is what they said. This is how they acted.
It depends on crimes, right? Like, are people committing crimes at the behest of this? Because if there's a socialist state,
committing crimes,
and
a capitalist,
someone is doing like white terror, let's say, or someone is doing South Korean style, you know, purges of communists, which has happened historically in every country that America is aligned.
Purging communism is like purging a scourge, like purging a virus. Communism is a virus. It's wrong on every level of analysis, and it's murderous. If anything should be purged in the history of the world, it should be communism.
With because
and not only that, it self-purges because the USSR falls by itself because any country that adopts communism starves to death.
So in a situation like that, I think if there's any kind of like terrorism happening,
sure, yeah. If there's violence, that's obvious.
I do think that there should be an enforcement mechanism, and in that enforcement mechanism, I think like rehabilitation, which would include re-education as well, would probably be a lot better.
Re-educating capitalists, dude. So this guy's crazy. I think this guy's a danger to civilization. I think this guy shouldn't live in America. He should be deported. He should be deported to Venezuela. This guy shouldn't live in America.
Prison structure where they have slavery, like in the United States.
So slavery. Okay. All right. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. This is. Yeah.
America.
I'm still a little bit confused about the ideal mechanism of a socialist country, whereas where people still have individual freedoms to like form, to assemble, and can also be like, yeah, I'm a capitalist, so what? And we're trying to grow our movement. I don't understand the organization of the socialist free country, because it seems to me to have a socialist country,
you have to subvert the human free will and spirit. Yes, exactly. That is the entire point. That's why it is evil. That is why it's from the deepest pit of hell. They subvert the very human sovereignty, because in order for them to perpetuate their broken ideology, which starves everyone to death and ruins everything, they have to require people think the same way, or they put them in camps to be re-educated. Dude, these people haven't read history, or they have and they're just psychopathic. This person is psychopathic. This person is insane and dangerous. This person is insane and dangerous, bro.
There needs to be some amount of dampening of, rights.
Well,
because like for what I said.
Yes and no, because my point is always the same. It's that this is a constant. This is consistent. What you're describing is consistent with the American formation. It's consistent.
You have the freedom to start a business. We do not have what you are describing. And
violence, and who gets to do violence, is an inherent part of politics, because politics is.
They only. This is how you see it manifest. They only view the world in terms of power. They don't view things in terms of merit. Do you hear what he just said? Violence, and who gets to do violence, is only as a result of who's in power. That's how they look at doing violence to people. That's how you know they're evil. These people are evil. This is evil. This is madness.
At the end of the day, a distribution of resources and a distribution of violence. Who gets to have what resources and who doesn't have the resources as a consequence of that. And if they do something to get those resources, what the state will be able to do. The state has a monopoly on violence across the board, no matter what happens, right? I'm not an anarchist. A lot of anarchists will get mad at me for saying this, but the state should have some level of a violent mechanism. Realism, police violence, police brutality, these are all different forms of violence.
There will be some exertion of force required to maintain a socialist country.
Yes, not just a social country, any country.
Sure, any country.
Yeah.
No, wrong. See, police are used to maintain law and order in a free country where you have rights, where you have freedoms, where you have liberty to believe in what you want. That's why this person gets to spout this insane, evil bile, is because soldiers and the police protect his right to do that, but in a fascist state that he's advocating for, there is none of that. And yeah, it's self-evidently immoral, but I'm marveling at the depth of this evil.
Yes, I agree. Until we reach a point of I guess, until we reach a point of production and our productive output has gotten to a point where it's so streamlined and so organized that there is no need for a state. But I don't know if we will ever be able to get there, where the state withers away and we have a classless, borderless, moneyless society.
Yeah, I mean, if it is, it's not in a long time.
Techno-communist.
It'd have to be like post-World War III or something. Let me ask you, I guess, another angle here. So, worker exploitation seems to be at the heart of socialism and communism.
Yes.
And so I want to ask you this question. If an employee is fairly compensated, and by fairly, I mean...
Look at these freaks. What's wrong with these freaks?
Factors like work, compensation, they're being paid well beyond the means of living.
So I think what you can tell in terms of a relationship breakdown between these two is that Ethan cares about being able to make money, and Hasan is just an evil demon. So that resulted in a divide that they can't breach anymore. Ethan says, I want to be able to make money and live in a non-fascist state with more than one party. And Hasan is saying, no, we need to have re-education camps for capitalists and live under tyranny. And that, I think, is probably where the breakdown is occurring. Guys, be sure to subscribe, because I obliterate insane, pathetic mental degeneracy very easily, and I want you guys to be able to see it. So, subscribe.
Savings, all the things people would want to do with money. If they're provided in all those ways that we see as important, is that still exploitation?
In the Marxian sense, yes. In the capitalist sense, no. Capitalism is
Mark, when you say Marxism, you're talking about socialism.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay.
So, in the Marxist perspective, under Marxian economics, Marxist theory, exploitation is not a good or bad thing. It is just a thing that happened.
Okay.
And it goes back to something I've described many, many times over, which is that there are two classes. There is the labor class, the wage laborers, the proletariat, and the bourgeois class, the capital owning class, right? Mm-hmm. And these two classes have two inherently contradictory interests. You work jobs when you had a boss and someone was paying you, and you have been a boss, so you have gone through both of these stages. So
these stages don't exist. There's a middle class. There's tremendous economic mobility. In America, there's the most amount of economic mobility out of anywhere else in the world. So that's what freedom, individuality, liberty provides people. That's what they hate, because that is an embodiment of competence hierarchies in contrast to only power hierarchies. And remember, they deny the existence of competence hierarchies, which is incorrect.
Oh, as someone
evil, as well as incorrect,
who worked in a job as a wage laborer, as a W-2 employer, 1099 contractor, you wanted to work the least amount of hours for the most amount of pay. Mm-hmm. That's understandable. That's perfectly reasonable.
That's not what most people want to do. A lot of people want to work hard so that they can move up the competence hierarchy, because that brings meaning to their life. Here we see how he's kind of broken. Well, not kind of. We see how he's broken, but I mean in comparison to maybe Ethan a bit. Ethan may be less broken in this way. So this is an underlying failure of left-wing ideology.
more money and you want to work less hours. You want to have more freedom. Your boss, on the other hand, wants you to work the most amount of hours for the least amount of pay, like that they can get away with.
Yeah.
So this inherent contradiction is at the heart of capitalism and is how commodities are produced under
That's at the heart of free will, liberty, and individual sovereignty. That's what that is. And demand in a free market what people are willing to pay freely is the entire point of freedom. That's why the alternative is tyranny, inevitably. The government saying you have to sell any product for a certain amount. You have to sell eggs for this price. That's tyranny. Capitalism is the opposite of tyranny. Capitalism is an observation of a mechanism in nature for creating value. It's not a theory.
I mean, in a sense, it's like, who are you to tell him he's being exploited?
Well, you're
Again, I know you want to get
because,
caught up on that,
it's
the
not-
definition of that word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's what I would say in that situation is this, right? Relying on the magnanimous nature of your boss and hoping that like your boss doesn't succumb to greed and choose to change certain things about your work.
No, see, that's wrong. First of all, you don't have to rely on that, because if your boss got to his place via competence, then he's not going to engage with mere corrupted power. And if he does, you can go to a different vertical competence hierarchy. That's the reason why there's not just one field of study, one field of expertise. There's not just one company. You can go to work at a different company. Again, you see the insistence that there's only power hierarchies, and they deny competence hierarchies, because when you see that there is a competence hierarchy, then you know that your boss has an incentive to reward you for being competent. It's very, very simple, because they want to keep you from going to another company which will pay you more if they fail to pay you what you're worth.
Okay.
But in social democracy, you set up the bumpers, you set up the systems where they have to do that. Well, that's the bare minimum they have to do.
Well, and then we go back to the
the way you set that up, you can't legislate that. First of all, you can't legislate an ethos of operation. What you do that, you ready for it? Judean Christian values. That's what built America. That's what undergirds all of our civilization. That's what undergirds the ethical frameworks for capitalism. Pure capitalism without ethics is a nightmare. But we do have ethics. We have Judean Christian ethics, and those are the guidelines that currently exist.
Erode the safety nets.
But you're talking like it's a guaranteed. And again, I go back.
It's been a guarantee every single time.
And it's been a guarantee by the same metric that any socialist country devolves into disaster. I mean, it's not fair to put that out there like it's just given, because on the.
I'm very surprised to hear Ethan say that. I guess he has a lot of self-interest, and that's the reason why he's willing to stand up for this. To be honest, in this case.
Other flip coin, you can say, this, like I mentioned, socialism. There's going to be people moving towards capitalism.
So socialist nation states,
it's too hypothetical.
Socialist nation states, however, historically, most of them at least, have not eroded or been destroyed due to like people who are just like, I want to be capitalist. Usually, those people are being goaded or supported, facilitated by a much more powerful nation.
See, only analysis in terms of power. What? No, they devolved because their ideas are antithetical to reality. They devolved and collapsed because their ideas are technically failures, because tyranny loses to freedom. Good trumps evil. This isn't complicated. Degenerate leftists are addicted to resentment. They are addicted and owned by resentment. It's crazy.
Using the inherent greed to their advantage to cause divisions, but the real material issues in socialist nation states, historical socialism, real socialism in the real world that has happened, has always been due to mishaps, famine, or the government
mishaps and famine. That's such an insanely evil thing to say. No, famine was created by the murderous ideology that forced people via tyranny into equality of outcome. Equality of outcome is evil beyond comprehension.
I always butcher this quote, but I forget who it was. It might have been Mark Fisher, might have been someone else. But assuming that greed is inherent in human nature under a capitalist organization of the economy is like assuming the black lung is
I'm
inherent
not
in human
saying
nature
capitalism.
if you work at the fucking coal mine.
See, that's not a good analogy.
Because no, you're
In my
right.
opinion.
Greed is a part of it. Self-interest is a part.
Dude, Marxism is like an adoption of like a low intellectual ability group of people. Like any people that are captured by Marxism, it's a sign that they are unintelligent. And I'm being completely honest. I'm not trying to be flippant here. It's actually a sign that they're mentally undeveloped. They're unsophisticated. They can't think. Everything about every single aspect of what they're describing here is broken on even a trivial level of analysis. It just instantly breaks. Not to mention that it is also trivially easy to realize its immorality. It's like it blows my mind that people are willing to be such slaves to an ideology just in order to call themselves good people, that they would profess an ideology that killed more than Nazism did. It's nuts.
If I'm just hiring Dan to come in and help me with cameras and stuff, and I have to cut him in on profit share, people are not going to hire as many people. They're going to think a lot more before they bring more people on.
Well, can I just chime in real quick? Just to clarify this point, are you still talking about the period of time where I was
Yes.
working as a contractor?
Yes. I haven't gotten to the full time yet. Well, we're going to move to that.
Right. I will just say that at the time, I was essentially operating as my own business as well, because you weren't my only client at the time.
Right. Okay.
I did that professionally for a lot of people, and you were one of many people that I would come and do shows with until you offered me a full-time thing. So just because we're using this specific example, I just wanted to
clarify.
clarify.
Super emotional and triggered. See, he is the communist that's leaving the show as well. Exposed from Twitter. Wow, this is really interesting to see how like emotionally destroyed. What a beta male. What a weak beta male.
Clarify that because I think that matters in what the dynamic was when we were initially working together.
I don't think
Dude,
that
look at
matters.
him shaking.
Matters
And
in
his
what the
veins sticking out of his neck.
dynamic was when we were
He's
initially
like about to cry right now.
working together.
I don't think that matters in such that I'm more focused just on the profit
So
sharing.
the reason why I was bringing
And
up
like the implications on to a business and business owner
People are so emotional and broken.
of that.
Okay, but the reason why I was bringing up the revenue is because let's say you were making you're making $10.
This guy's also very easily understood as a psychopath, and it makes sense, like archetypally speaking here, is that you can tell he just views everything in terms of power. So he like talks over people. He tries to steer the conversation back in the direction of his blatantly incoherent statements. He doesn't contend with what other people have to say because he doesn't view things in terms of ideas meritocratically going to war with each other. That doesn't exist because there is no merit to ideas. There's only power. Remember, they deny the existence of meritocracy. That's the reason why he feels emboldened to, act this way.
Dan
I
comes
noticed
on.
that too.
Now you're making $15.
Yeah.
Right? Dan has brought in $5 extra of revenue for you, and I think that the best possible way to engage with that would be to cut Dan in on offer Dan living wages plus whatever Dan has brought in the form of revenue.
Here's a big problem.
And that moves into direction like you make, and then later down the line you make $100,000 and
It moves with
now
it, yeah.
Dan is moving with it as well.
Here's where this seems more like it's a nice.
Impossible to scale. And by the way, private equity already exists. When people have stock options when they work at new companies, but fundamentally they do not deserve what the founder deserves because they didn't bring as much value.
Theory, but like in application, it makes no sense. Who decides how much value he's brought? How could you possibly decide that? If my show is growing, Dan joins, and let's say, I now am making $15.
I'm so surprised to see Ethan decline, like holding this garbage accountable.
The show was organically growing. How can I attribute all 5 of that to Dan?
You're absolutely correct on this as well. This is a big weakness.
50-50 with him?
This is something that I do not have an answer for either, which is why,
It doesn't
like
make
I
sense.
said, I said, you make do with you try to do your very best.
Can I be? This seems like a big problem to say you don't have a solution for if you're advocating for a socialist society.
I agree, which is why I
It
always
doesn't seem like it's ready.
Well, can I just chime in on this? this isn't theoretical.
This is the guy. This is the freak. This is the fucking communist. This is a loser beta male. I'll just say it for what it is, because look at him, bro. He was literally shaking a second ago, almost in tears. This is the guy that's leaving the show. Pathetic. And by the way, I can't believe I'm saying that he's pathetic for leaving the Ethan Decline show, but apparently there's even bigger loser freaks than Ethan Decline, and the way you do it is by professing tyranny and communism and an ideology that killed 50 million people. That's, I guess, how you do it.
There are lots of companies that do profit sharing.
I do this as well.
I know, but it's not like.
But
so
like
let's
big
say
companies,
this,
and they have various methods of how they do it.
The way
there are ways that do it that make sense.
I do this
but
as
the
well,
way that
Ethan.
socialism does it in the purest sense is like Dan joined 10 to 15. Dan gets half of the 15.
So
that's his
Ethan,
labor.
Ethan, this is if we're talking pure
Hold on one
theory.
sec.
If we're talking pure theory,
Yeah.
I would rather have an imperfect structure that still
It's
absolutely
not
offers
imperfect.
better.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't allow for scale to happen. You can't bring on 50 employees when each of them gets 5%.
Well,
If you don't know
the
how people
capitalist-
get paid, how does it even work?
the capitalist structure also is imperfect in the exact same
Well,
way.
it's functioning at least.
Yes, I know, but the idea that like the other structure would not function is not correct. Especially when we're telling you that even under a capitalist organization,
He's saying okay, this is so interesting, bro. There you see what I said earlier in this video. Hasan got to this video editor. This video editor became entrenched in this radical left-wing hatred and resentment and became a communist, and that's why he's leaving the show. that same, dude, it's connected. I predicted it. I can see through the haze. I can see through the matrix, bro. I know what's going on. I can read the architecture of degenerate fucking brain failures. Like I can read code. It's because I've studied their ideology. I know how it's wrong. I know it top to bottom, left to right.
podcast, for example,
How
where
about fuck you? How about I'll fire any employee that even talks about taking more than I'm offering to pay? Like, what the fuck? Who do you think you are? Like, I'll just replace the person. There are a lot of people willing to work. You idiot! You fool! Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, this is the reason. Dude, this is the reason why they're trying to ban AR-15s, by the way. Dude, I'm just going to say it because it's true. They're trying to ban assault weapons, high-powered rifles, assault weapons, because that's how you would resist this tyranny. That's how you would say, no, I'm not going to run my business with this tyranny. Not that, that's going to happen. People will literally not stand for it.
we just split it 5 ways regardless. Obviously, my output in that situation, given that I am the host with the largest audience, would significantly outweigh my producers, for example, who could be paid.
Why? In your ideology, exactly why? Because you're supposed to have equality of outcome. Equality of outcome.
With a very fair, very fat
It's not socialism.
market wage, right? Market wage plus market wage times 3
Been cornered and destroyed. It's so easy. I think a 5th grader could do it.
is what I could pay him,
Honestly.
and it would still be significantly less than what he gets paid now.
Yeah.
Because we're cutting him in 5 ways. We're splitting everything 5 ways.
Yeah.
And that is a perfectly viable way to do it, because
I think that's very generous, but I don't think you should be forced to do that.
I think that
I think you should be forced to pay him what we've determined as a minimum wage, where he can live where he lives in a comfortable state.
Correct.
In this socialist theoretical country, where I go from 10 to 15 and I give Dan 15, hypothetically for any worker joining, that as a business owner, I would be less likely to be hiring people.
certainly.
And that's not good, is it?
No, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing at all.
Because
Pathetic. Dude, evil. Just degeneracy. These people don't care about truth. They don't care about making sense. That makes no sense. Not being able to scale, you wouldn't be able to provide services at a great scale then. That's absolute madness. Complete mental debauchery. Bro, these people are mentally damaged, and talking to they're expecting their audience to be so mentally damaged to not even hold them accountable for a statement like that. This happens so many times.
let me go back. Why is it better? Why is
way.
it better that I have to go through like extraneous
we're
full-on
talking about
HR
hypotheticals.
processes?
We're talking about hypotheticals.
Yeah.
In this situation.
Yeah.
So it can I can just hypothesize that you found Dan. Not even hypothesize.
No, we're not talking. Well, we're talking hypothetically, but we're talking.
You found Dan, so you clearly.
But we went through
were
a lot of
able
people before we found Dan.
to. Yeah. Well, you could have arrived at Dan as well, is what I'm saying.
It would have
Through
taken a lot
strenuous
longer, and the
process.
business might not have survived.
Okay. So
There was a point where the podcast almost got wrapped up.
yeah.
So why is it better in theory to have that extraneous of a hiring process than being able to kind of just people try things out?
This is only one aspect of it, but what you're talking about, like the extraneous hiring process, also would exist under a social democracy as well. It should exist in some form under a social democracy as well. Like
Why?
some level of protection from being fired.
But so in social democracy, you're not rev sharing. So there's like this
Yeah.
big thing that you're like, I'm a business owner. I've created this business from my own sweat and blood and tears over the last 10 years. And I'm making a lot of money. I got to hire this guy who I don't know anything about, and I got to cut him in on my profits. That doesn't exist in social democracy.
And once again,
absolute, like, condescending animal. He's advocated for tyranny, re-education camps, literal fascism, and now he's like, like he's trying to mock every aspect of what Ethan just said, which is actually completely correct. And taking on individual responsibility, industriousness, individual liberty, and your individual identity to create a business. He's mocking all of that. This person's completely evil. This is a very, very evil person. That is one of the largest threats to civilization, I think. Definitely worse than like any ISIS leader, that's for sure.
going back to
By
the
the way,
labor.
it's really interesting to see like a thoroughly deformed creature that has had a history and a track record of like being absolutely heinous and immoral. One of the worst people that is on the internet for sure. I mean, what he said about Dan Crenshaw is just it's not human. It's completely inhuman. You wouldn't see a human saying the type of things he said about Dan Crenshaw. And the people on Fox News rightly called him an animal for it. I mean, it was just completely barbaric behavior. This is a damaged human, and there needs to be like multiple documentaries analyzing his mental brokenness and how it infects, how that same mental brokenness can afflict any person that is ravaged by left-wing resentment, and maybe how a certain type of mental broken state is sort of invites in, not sort of, overtly invites in the resentment and hatred found in leftist doctrine like Marxism and communism.
Just kind of
Lowell Beta Male, let's see what he has to say now.
depends on I mean, I think there's nuance there because I think it really
This absolute freak.
depends on
Loser.
what the
What, is
company
this guy like 35? What a loser.
looks like, how it operates. Should the CEO who is on a day-to-day basis working and managing a company make more money?
He works the same hours as the production people.
I mean, with more responsibility, I think should inherently come with some more privilege. However, I mean, now are we talking about a CEO or are we talking about an owner? Because a lot of owners don't do shit.
No. So you agree he should make more. So let's
depends.
so
It
let's
depends.
follow
It just
You're-
depends.
this is
Yeah.
there's not room for nuance.
What do you-
Can't, there's just not.
What do you mean
If
there's not
if
room
you're
for
living in a
nuance?
socialist country, this shit needs to be like laid out. Like there's not room
But-
for
but just
nuance.
like-
where
but-
in every workplace
No, just like
we're going to
there is-
decide
just
little
like there's
different rules for
nuance
everything.
under capitalism where you have the freedom to fucking
but there's
operate in
rules,
that
like
regard.
minimum wage.
But with rules, exactly, you would have the similar structure pegged to like.
I'm trying to ask you guys what
pegged
the
to
rules, and I
worker
keep getting these
compensation,
nebulous
like a maximum
answers.
wage tied directly to your lowest paid
This
employee.
is what I wanted to say though. Let's say
Do you hear what I said?
I did.
Maximum wage tied to like there could be a situation where like a maximum wage could be implemented under a socialist structure to ensure that every single workplace has at least a maximum
I
wage that is
understand.
directly tied to the lowest paid worker and their full-blown compensations and benefits
See,
packages.
that's based on resentment and jealousy. That's not based on coherence or logic. That's not based on production at all. That's just thoroughly based on jealousy.
It's literally it's not compatible. It doesn't work because you're going to have people at the top who are going to want more. They're going to want more influence. They're going to want more power. They're going to want more money. And they're going to exert their influence, their status. Even if they don't make more money, they have status.
Yeah,
For
there's
sure.
going to be
They're
some
gonna
form-
have-
there
they're gonna
will
be able to influence
Socialism
it.
is not egalitarian in
But
the
don't-
sense that there's
you see
like
what I'm saying, Dan, that
full-blown
there's a
equity.
problem here?
Socialism
So
does not.
Socialism
He's
only
talking
exists.
to his editor because he knows his editor is a communist. That's crazy.
this when you
Socialism.
remove the money motive, right? Dan?
Socialism, and in the way we understand socialism, yes, the money motive is. Now we're talking about.
That doesn't seem
Now
like
we're talking about
something you want to
eroding
do.
it.
You don't want to remove the money motive.
He's an evil wannabe dictator who should be treated as a pariah.
Do with the productive output, and has nothing to do with
Is.
like your material reality.
That's why this is like looking into a zoo of mentally damaged people, and it's crazy to see how people can go down a hole so dark that they make Ethan Decline look like the reasonable person. That's crazy. That's an accomplishment of very dark proportions.
Doesn't work. We know that, and I think socialism doesn't work for the same exact thing, because people are going to want to. The psychopaths are going to want to move it, and
He's talking to a psychopath. That's really interesting. He still hasn't realized it.
Only
He
real.
still doesn't realize he's talking to a psychopath, even though he said that there needs to be re-education camps and tyranny, straight up fascism, in order to, force this dystopian world. Yeah, a degradation of human sovereignty, individual freedom, liberty, everything. It's very, very perverse.
Holistic solution is in
To the workplace, the workers wrap power to say, what the fuck are we doing? You're destroying my fucking uncle's, farm. You're destroying my backyard.
That's exactly what happened under Soviet Russia communism. People's farms were destroyed and people starved to death. These people don't care about ideas. They're very easily destroyed. What they are driven by is resentment. So the architecture of what we're analyzing here is interesting when you look at that. The resentment and its various manifestations are perpetually interesting, sort of like a chimpanzee throwing its feces.
Oh God!
No, do not.
You want me to mute his mic?
That's fucked up.
Freudian moment.
I'm reading the comment.
Nope, I have control.
There it is. Freudian moment.
There you go.
Dude, and he's being kicked off the show, and he's a communist who thinks he deserves the same. He thinks he deserves profit share, and he's saying, "I have control." Freudian moment. You have control because you're getting fired, you fucking beta loser freak. Dude, you're shaking and nearly crying as you're getting owned. Think about
God knows
that. And you're getting
what
fired,
people.
bitch.
But like my question always is like, if you're coming from one of these communities, like, don't you feel like you're duped a little bit by whoever you trusted into believing that there is like genuine discord?
See, they can't understand knowledge because because they can't accept ideas are either valid or invalid based on merit because they throw out meritocracy. They only understand things in terms of power. What he said self-evidently doesn't make sense, but I'm explaining to you why it doesn't make sense. They have no theory, no grasp for the concept that meritocracy governs the world. It governs the war between ideas, and it governs capitalism. That's why you can listen to immensely intelligent thinkers explain very complex topics, whether that be neuroscience or biology or psychology. For instance, Jordan Peterson explaining psychology, and vet the ideas based on an internal logic, an internal coherence that describes an intrinsic aspect of nature. It's the foundation of philosophy, as a matter of fact.
Like talking about you and Ethan, having a falling out,
or even people didn't attack you as much. Surprisingly, it was more so me, even though you and him had a big disagreement as far as
nobody gives a shit about me. I mean, come on.
It was odd. I don't know.
Thank you, AB.
Because you have a lot of differing opinions as well, but for some reason you weren't getting.
Don't worry. I'll give you some attention. Disgusting beta communist.
You weren't getting criticized.
Dude, all these communists are all beta. They're essentially destroyed. It's so funny to see too, because they're all exactly like women. They're resentful of reality. They're like degenerate women. They're resentful of reality. They hate themselves. They're triggered at objective truth. They're triggered at reason. They can't stand the notion of an objective truth. They can't stand the notion of a meritocracy that judges them. And they advocate for tyranny. They advocate for fascism. It's really pathetic.
It's almost like people are more self-interested in certain directions. But
I think there's definitely an element of that. People definitely have it out for you. And also, I think I saved myself.
These are probably one of the most hated people in the world right now, and that's so good. Like, these people need to be destroyed, mocked, and completely made into pariahs. These people maybe should be deported from the United States.
A little bit by being.
Would you deport a member of ISIS from the United States? These people are terrorists to civilization.
At the beginning, I don't know if you caught how much of that conversation you caught, but I was very reluctant to engage in that conversation. And so,
Look at how beta and weak he is.
anything
Look at how emotional and unstable he is. Look at that.
that I said was kind of tinged with the fact that like Dan doesn't even really want to be here. So I guess maybe that softened people's anger. I'm sure people did get angry about it, but frankly, I was stressed about it afterwards just because like, I don't
How
know.
weak. I'm honestly enraptured with his weakness. It's crazy.
I don't like being the center of attention. And so I stayed off of social
Dude,
media.
This is the type of guy you could like punch in the face and he would do nothing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'll take this as an opportunity to drop a little bit of knowledge I don't think I've ever actually shared on this show.
Well, guys, we're about to hear from the communist with a room temperature IQ.
My one side of my family
Is he about to cry right now?
actually I am descended from a bunch of like hardcore Bolsheviks in the Russian Revolution.
I knew it.
Fuck, dude, that's you. That's
I
right.
fucking
We were actually trying to draw this out of you, dude. You're fucking done,
God
son.
damn it.
My last name Sverdlov is a bastardization of Sverdlov, who was one of Lenin's like lieutenants in
You don't
the
want me to
revolution.
run this out? You sure you want this to go out?
So, I mean,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
we're talking
Can't
like
make this up. His family served Lenin.
And, dude,
we're talking like
A3 podcast, bro. The A3 podcast employed someone whose family served Lenin, a dictator of communism that killed tens of millions, bro.
yeah. We're Czarists here. How dare you?
sorry, I didn't want to
Yeah.
piss off the whites. Yeah.
So I know. I always see this picture and I'm always like, dude, he seems a little too comfortable in that outfit.
But like,
He's just filling that uniform.
It was a Halloween
Little too
costume. It was a
natural.
Halloween
Yeah.
costume.
This is surreal. This is crazy. This is really this video here is such a cesspool of the internet. I'm glad that I ventured into it just to show everyone how pathetic they are. Dude, you know what? In honor of capitalism, I'm going to order a sandwich to my door that a worker is going to prepare for me for minimum wage, which is over, $15 an hour here in California, and I'm going to eat it and enjoy it. Because these people are advocating an ideology that has starved tens of millions to death, and as I eat that sandwich, I'm going to think to myself, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to live in America and have access to my mental faculties and morality, and so that I can do battle with the forces of darkness and absolutely own these people and disintegrate it so that you can observe how they're wrong.
I don't think Chinese fascism is better or worse than
Chinese
American
fascism.
fascism. Why is that funny?
because I don't think that I do not think that China is fascist. I think that they are
Closer.
authoritarian.
Close.
I don't think China is closer to fascism than America.
I mean, not
because the
fascism isn't-
hypothet.
They have a dictator, as they have a king for life. You just admitted that you're mentally broken, yet again.
The only
Because the
authority.
That's so pathetic, dude.
most significant building their military, and they don't have freedom
They
of
own the
assembly or
press.
freedom of speech. Well,
They control the culture.
yes, this part
They own
part is
all
correct.
The manufacturing.
National
They control the culture. There's no freedom of assembly. There's no freedom of speech. They control all the media, dude.
nationalism is the
It's
best
so obvious.
part that you can actually
They are
identify
nationalistic.
in the problems with China. You can absolutely push that.
I don't see where
push
I'm
that
missing.
part where
See how
it is.
ideologically captured they are? They can't think freely. Their brains are broken. Their brains are bent in half and then broken.
It is nationalistic. Okay. However,
It's pathetic.
the Chinese
Look at
development.
these guys try. Look at this. Look at this. Demon wannabe fascist try to argue that China is China is least fascist than the United States. That's insane. They literally have a dictator king as their ruler. They have no elections for their leaders. They have no freedom of assembly, as they just admitted. They have no freedom of speech. They have all the companies. Their corporations are owned by the government. It's literally communism, and the only extent of capitalism that they have is the trade they have with the West. It's absolutely bonkers, and it's the inverse of truth. Leftists invert truth. It is a war on truth. It is a war on coherence that they're waging.
Okay.
Tibet is the South in the Civil War.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pathetic. These people are evil. It's really interesting to see through evil. I've said it many times. It's like you're visiting a zoo, but for evil people. So instead of animals at the zoo, you're just looking at really evil, disturbed, broken humans.
One-party state is a good model because the outcome of that one-party state is also massive human rights violations across the board.
I mean, I don't think that. I think that America is a one-party state.
I don't care about America.
No, but it's important to understand because, like, the one-party state is an inevitability under any kind of.
America does not have a one-party state. You fool. One side supports the sterilization of children, the other side is saying they do not. One side is saying you can kill babies, the other side is saying you cannot.
Formation of the
One side
government.
is saying we need to advocate communism, the other side is saying we need to have liberty, freedom, individual sovereignty, and capitalism. Harping on this, and it's, I probably could have ended the video 30 minutes ago, but I'm doing it so that you all can see how mentally broken the left is. I'm not going to just let it slide. You guys can see. I'm going to force you to look at it. What you're witnessing here is the nature and intrinsic brokenness of what Marxism produces. Nothing but despair, mental bankruptcy, moral, incoherence, moral bankruptcy, nihilism, and an inability to think and contend with ideas in any logical way. The demonization of truth. It's all there for you to see. And so as we plot a course forward into the future, we need to know who the terrorists are. We need to literally know what the terrorism is so that we don't relapse into reliving the 20th century, so that we can move forward and actually build a better future predicated on the nobilities of the human condition: liberty, dignity, individual sovereignty, freedom, the ability to create things, to freely associate, to not live in a dictatorship or, a fascist state where, where you send capitalists to re-education camps, and set the prices of goods so that everyone starves to death. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're on a mission for truth. It's very easy for me to do this. What you are seeing here is a culmination of immense degeneracy. This didn't just happen overnight. Ethan Decline invited this psychopathic narcissist who is against humanity into the proverbial chicken coop, and that's why this debate is happening, because he's weak, because he's failed. And this fallout that he's having both with his editor, who is a generational servant of Lenin, and this self-professed wannabe fascist, communist, low IQ terrorist, was a result of moral negligence and a lack of individual responsibility. So that's how you got to see this insane freak show. And I think that the fact that this will be on the internet forever is a really, really important thing, so that people can look back and see this was the state of moral degeneracy in the early 21st century, brought on by leftist resentment in a nihilistic and deliberately evil plot to destroy humanity. So with that being said, guys, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys soon.